My name is Daniel Lee. I'm a garden designer specialising in designing gardens for biodiversity and for wildlife. And today I want to talk about this project that has been a long time coming. From initial idea to what we see in front of us now is 5 years of many iterations, many setbacks, many times where we thought this project was never going to happen and was totally forgotten about. But we're now at the stage where actually on yesterday was officially signed off. So it's now officially done. The talk today is about trees in cities, and one of the driving forces behind this project is, if you go back a couple of steps, if you don't know where this is on Barnwell Road on the Verge. It's running parallel to Galford School, which is there. And so this has become, up until the design was implemented, a car park. It's a car park or a temporary car park for the parents that drop their kids off and pick their kids up from the Galford School. And I hate to say it because I'm a massive Cambridge United fan, but on a Saturday afternoon, the Cambridge United fans who must park on the Verge because they've parked there for the last 40 years and it's their God-given right. Anyway, but what has happened is accumulatively the soil has got compact, more and more compact. And that's one of the biggest killers of trees is soil compaction. Because a lot of focus is on, or people have a lot of focus on what's above ground, but that's just quite literally half the story. The compacted soil would mean that the tree's roots would be suffocating. So what we try to do with this project is, we try to do a lot of things. What we're trying to do is increase biodiversity along this verge. Because what we're trying to achieve and what we got funding for was to create a corridor, a connective corridor from Barnwell Road near the McDonald's roundabout all the way down to the Sainsbury roundabout and Coldham's Lane. And that's what Natural England, or that's where we got our funding from, because we needed to prove that we could create this connective corridor, this connective tissue, if you like, between point A and point B. So we were trying to increase biodiversity. We were trying to increase the number of habitats that were on the verge. But also by changing the way this space is used, that it would help the trees. As you can see, you may be able to see, but perhaps you saw earlier, that in areas we are putting down loads of compost. In areas we're putting down loads of recycled bark chippings. Because fundamentally what we're trying to do is change and alter and benefit the soil around it. And if you don't know, you may know, but soil isn't just mud. Soil is mud. It's the minute rocks, the little sand, silt and clay particles. But what's really going on is it's full of billions and billions and trillions of fungus, bacteria, nematodes, worms, beetles, you name it. So we were trying to rebalance that. We were trying to restart those natural processes. And as a simple, very, very, very quick, don't like the term quick win, is we lay this bark mulch, or the contractor laid this bark mulch down about a month ago, and we were doing some volunteering planting days, weren't we, Jill? And you pull back the bark mulch and the worm activity has started again. The worms are back in the soil and they're creating holes in the soil, and they're creating burrows where air can percolate down, where water can percolate down. So it was really fascinating to see how quickly soil microbes, the soil soil systems can start again. One of the most striking elements of the project was the Deadwood log piles. And we were really lucky because the contractor that won the contract is a tree surgery company. So they had, and they're called Mercer's Tree Services, who have been brilliant. I want to give them a big shout out. So they had access to all of these trunk wood, and that was all of the trees that had been cut down on council land, and we were able to reuse them. And what was great with using all these trunks is they were full of fungus. And what we've done by bringing logs into this garden, that we are bringing fungus, we are bringing bacteria to inoculate this site. So although you can't kind of see these, these minute fungus and bacteria, we are inoculating this site and again increasing the biodiversity within the soil. One element again which has been really striking, and I think it's really important when you are creating gardens that look wild, that are biodiverse, is you've got to give it context, you've got to give it form, you've got to delineate where these wild spaces are. And along here is a winding dead hedge, which I think is a major success, because, hands up, who's ever heard of a dead hedge? Probably the wrong audience to say that, you probably don't know it. Not everybody's. But another question, how many times have you seen a dead hedge on a grass verge? And I think it's absolutely superb that it starts the process in normalising, and a friend said this, she said, it's great, we're normalising dead hedges on a verge. Because it's impossible until you do it. Well, you can't put a grass verge, you can't put a dead hedge on a grass verge. Well, you can, and we have, And again, you've got that deadwood habitat all the way along there. What's really striking, I feel, is that we use these really quite a lot. I think we use over 300 poles, sweet chestnut poles, to delineate the dead hedge. So structurally, it's really sound, and visually, it's a really strong line. It gives real strong definition to the hedge and to the project as a whole.
Can I just ask, what is the dead hedge? Sorry, I'm probably the one person who doesn't know.
Okay, so cool. So
Me too. I was going to ask as well.
Cool.
Did you plant the dead hedge?
No.
It was there already.
No.
No, you made it.
Say again.
You made it out of somewhere.
Yeah. So you can make so what we did is the upright poles are sweet chestnut, and those were supplied by the contractor.
Yeah.
And that was really great. They had a really cool machine that basically hammered them into the ground, which means we didn't have to use any concrete or anything to give them stability. And the inside of the hedge is just dead branches, cut branches, which is great. So it's a really transferable thing that anybody can do in their garden. If you've got any sort of prunings, they can either go in your green bin and you've got to jump on your green bin, which may or may not be advisable, or you can create habitat from it. Is that okay?
Yes.
Cool.
So it's just a neat. It's a way of making it look nice, rather than just it being in a big pile.
Yes, 100%. And it's confined to that space. Yeah. Because that's one of the again, sort of the challenges is how do you make functional habitat that actually functions and actually can harbour caterpillars and stag beetle larvae and actually work and actually do something rather than just looking pretty, but also look pretty at the same time. So with the dead hedge, that was really important. And to provide a visual context, a more of a garden-esque feel, and to show the general public that this place is being cared for. It's a phrase I like to use, is a cue to care, so people can see the legibility of it. On both ends of this 256 linear metre garden is you have these raised beds. So we were talking earlier about Corten steel. So it's a steel edge around here, filled with, so you can see it's in gravel. So you had 10 centimetres of gravel. Underneath that was 10 centimetres of compost. It's the compost you get from Water Beach, you know, that stuff. And then that compost sits on the soil below. But that ornamental border is there to give, again, a cue to care, to show that it is being cared for, and and it provides quite an ornamental interest as well.
Can I just ask about the dead hedge? Does it have to be sort of replenished?
Yes, it does, yeah.
So,
yeah. So depending on what branches you're using, yeah. So we will be, sorry, give some more context. So I was the designer on the project, and we were working with Jill, and the client was Abbey People. So I don't know if you know Abbey People. So moving forward, Abbey People and the volunteers will be topping that up. Yeah. I think it's probably time for questions. Yes.
We know this area, well, I think most of us know this area. We know Cambridge as being one of the most unequal cities in the UK.
Yes.
The most unequal several years in a row. And then this area as being an area of poverty. So have you engaged with that issue? Yeah.
Okay, so that's a really good point. So so I want to link a couple of projects here. So you're dead right, totally. I mean, I've lived in Cambridge all my life, and yes, you can be in Newnham and you can be in Barnwell, and it's sort of worlds away. And there's a bit of research done by a great PhD called, it doesn't matter what his name was, but they linked poverty to amount of tree cover. So this PhD student got some funding, and around Barnwell planted loads of new trees that are going to be really good for climate change and grow to their full size, and over the course of the next 50 years increase canopy cover. So these, so what is a sort of an impoverished area with very low tree cover will be, again, in 50 years we'll have that tree cover. And I've known about this research way before this project started. So, especially on this other project, which is the pocket garden nearby, which I worked with Jill on, the trees that I selected to go into the rest of the planting were all what I would call climate change ready trees. I could have gone for the sort of easy option and planted just native trees, but I know they wouldn't last into the future. So I've been really conscious about the plants and the trees that I've selected. So this garden and the pocket garden here will have the greatest chance of being ready for climate change and be resilient to climate change, and really increase the quality of the amenity space in Barnwell, because it's rubbish. I don't know what else to say, really. Is that okay?
Is that answer?
All right.
Could I? Is there? Would you? No. I'm being serious.
What specific?
I think it's nice. I think it's great. But I think the emphasis of that was about climate change, really, not about people and poverty. And inequality is about people and poverty, isn't it? And I'm doing art projects now where I'm co-creating, so I'm being paid, but the people I work with, I'm not working on people, I'm not having volunteers, I'm having people being paid equally. So I'm just thinking maybe I've got a different perspective on that kind of equality and inequality. But I do like what you said, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not denigrating what you said.
No.
I think the council are doing other things too, though, aren't they? Like making a community centre and trying to put a bit more in.
Talking about Abbey.
Abbey,
Yeah, I was certainly on the project. We have tried to engage the local community. It's about educating. I don't know if that's exactly what you're saying, but you know, like doing the stuff in the schools.
Okay.
Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yeah, I know you do a lot of
Yeah, but that's part of that project.
But part of it, so this is 5. So okay, so more context, which we've been on a proper journey for 5 years. So we've been under many iterations. We've done it feels like about 5 or 6. We went to the Gariford School. Me and you worked in the Gariford School.
2 or 3 years.
We did some consultation in Barnwell Library to really engage. Well, what do people want to see? Because what do people want? Rather than, because for me, as talking generally now, no design process works if it's just a sort of designer on high, whether you're a designer, landscape architect, or an architect on high, just dictating. It's rubbish. You never get the best outcome. It just doesn't really work. So properly consulting, properly listening to people is what we've been doing up until we physically started on site. So yeah, yes.
How is what you advise in these projects different from what the PhD student?
So the PhD students, he was so the trees that he was specifying are again sort of non-native or near-native, and they've been tested for climate change. So yeah, they will be drought tolerant. They will be flood resistant. Yeah. So, but again, me having that plant knowledge as well, that I knew the trees that I wanted to use, and especially on this project. Yeah. So they not only work for sort of pollinators, that that's a rabbit hole. But yeah, they work for wildlife. Yeah. There we go. Yes.
What species are they? What are the chosen species?
Okay, so you've got a Amelanchier. You've got a mountain ash or a sorbus, but a native of China.
Yes.
You've also got. You've put me on the spot here. No, you should have. That's why.
There's one thing I could add though, because they're going to have a notice board in the garden where I think you should be able to access the information to QR codes about the plants and insects.
Yeah.
I think that's the thinking, because and so I just know a bit about the community workshops. I mean, I've been making these little glass pieces with people to talk about, to try to get them to recognise the insects that we're attracting into the garden and how they are, and which plants they go with, which has been really interesting. But I've sent all the information to them, which Dan gave me, so that hopefully people can click on the QR code and see, what plants relate to what insects.
Yeah. So the trees that you planted, how long are you expecting them to live for? Because you said there's no point in planting native trees. So why have you planted these, or how long are you expecting them to live for?
So.
And also, I'm quite keen on fruit trees. All sorts feed on fruit trees.
Yes.
Whether they're on the tree itself or whether the fruit, etc., falls on the ground. All sorts of creatures, animals.
100%.
Have you ever thought about fruit trees?
100%, and we haven't just thought about fruit trees. There are fruit trees within here as well, because within the design team there's a great lady called Emma who runs, as well as working for Abbey People, she runs does a lot of community tree planting projects specialising in fruit trees. So there are fruit bushes in here as well. So to clarify, there's not to say there's no point in planting native trees, because obviously the native wildlife and native trees or native flora and fauna have co-evolved over millions of years, so they require each other for food sources, etc. So in terms of the trees that we've planted, again, you're looking at a 50 to 75 year window.
What? Because that's how long they live for?
Yes, because they're not massive trees. They are what they would be in their own country. They would be those early pioneer species, much like a birch, much like a mountain ash or a rowan.
And I do know that the Cove Farm, which is also on Colton's Common, the council have given trees for an orchard there. So they've planted an orchard on the Cove Farm. So that's something big. That's fruit trees.
Yeah. Yes.
How are you, or whoever, planning to keep the cars off?
The reality is we're not. And that's, we really discussed this from sort of minute one, day one, where, so we can't do the impossible, nor would we want to keep all of the cars off. Because if you're going to just chuck the cars off there, where are they going to go? They're going to go down Racing Way and park on more of the grass. So there's a displacement issue. However, by putting in the dead hedge, by putting in this chestnut pale fencing, and by using the bark mulch, we've given the trees enough. We obviously wanted a bit more, but that's fine. Enough of a root protection zone, which will benefit them. So yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Within your design, are there sort of anti-vandalism elements?
What do you mean?
Well, there's a trend, isn't there, which is very noticeable now. People indiscriminately
Yeah.
trees down.
Yeah. So not really. If somebody's going to be mindless and do that. However, so to kind of answer a similar point. So these log piles, we were advised by the council, and the tree officer was really supportive. He said, look, we've got a protocol with our log piles. They've got to be trunk piles, because if you have little logs, and you make a pile, they're either going to be burnt, cut down, or put in somebody's boot to go in their fire. So, and we couldn't go. We only went one trunk high. We couldn't go too high. No anti-vandalism measures, because people will just do that. There's not much really you can do to stop it, I don't think.
Well, once the community enjoys it, and it'll be theirs, and then maybe we should protect it.
Maybe, but
Trouble with vandalism is people often come from outside the community.
yeah.
If you keep your ears to the ground in Cambridge, you hear that people in areas like Arbury are getting kids from villages who wouldn't do it in their own turf, but they have to go somewhere else where nobody knows them.
Yeah.
So.
Is the dead hedge any good for kindling?
Don't answer that.
I'm not answering that question. Sorry, mate. Well, I would hope that you wouldn't use it for kindling, because again, we are hoping that it would be full of deadwood beetles. So if you'd be frying a deadwood beetle on, if you felt comfortable frying a deadwood beetle on your fire, on your conscious bit, kind sir.
looks like it's fine.
Depends how many wood burning stoves are in the neighbourhood, really.
Yes.
True. Yeah, that's,
Yeah. What sort of plants have you planted in the Corten steel gravel gardens?
yeah, so that's a mixture of we've got sedges, we've got foxgloves, we've got so they are. I could give you the plant list, but they're a mixture of native and non-native woodland plants. So North American woodland plants, and a few tall, what we call umbellifers that look like cow parsley. So it gives a sort of a feel of it being wild. Yeah.
Are you still introducing those water gardens, putting for replenishing water into the ground?
So you talked about how can we keep the cars off the verge. Well, so there is the possibility of funding the possibility of funding another community organisation to on this patch which isn't within our remit is to create what we call SUDS gardens, we'll go down this rabbit hole, sustainable urban drainage systems. So basically what we're trying to do, which is a posh word for saying, let's not put the water down the drain, let's put it into the soil for it to drain. Like we've been doing for the last billion years, but we've decided to, yeah. So, I don't know if they've heard back from that on that funding appeal, but so there was talk of boulders as well as part of that. But that's stage 2.
So is that what you call a rain garden?
Yes, a rain garden. So that's basically a rain garden. Yeah. Well, it is a good idea, and what you're going to find, and as we talk about climate change, what you're going to find, what we are finding, what we are living through right now, is periods of drought, long periods of drought, and then an intense amount of rainfall in a short space of time. So our gardens, our landscapes, our private gardens, our landscapes, our verges, our public parks need to be ready for all that. So.
Also, is this the kind of thing that you're doing generally for private clients? Is it encompassing very much the same sort of thing as you're doing for private clients?
Yep, 100%. I don't.
Follow down on Instagram and see some lovely water gardens that he's done.
Yeah. So it's just trying to take. Yeah, it's just trying to take. It's just trying to take all these principles. It's all about. Do I actually put this on camera? To me, I was talking to a fellow garden designer the other day, and I was talking about my practice. And to me, I'm not really interested in garden design. Garden design bores the hell out of me. What it is, it's about habitat creation. Habitat creation that looks good and works, but it's all about how you can get these different types of habitat into a garden, into a verge, because our gardens, our verges, our landscapes need to be connected. So we need to be doing stuff, we all need to be doing stuff in our gardens so we can reconnect our fragmented landscapes, our fragmented villages, we just need to be doing this stuff. I don't know what else to say really, that is what we need to be doing. And doing it in a way that looks good and is low maintenance or lower maintenance and is sustainable and is going to be climate change resilient, that's what we need to be doing. I'm not saying that from a self-interest, I have a business, I'm saying from a factual, that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Yes?
The problem, I agree completely that you have to build with the community, because otherwise it's pretty pointless. But the thing is that...
And you need to educate the community as well.
Sorry?
You need to build it with the community, and you need to have to constantly educate.
Build with and the community have to educate you too, you know, I feel.
Yeah.
What they want. But the thing is that the planning policy throughout Cambridge is so, you know, impossible to navigate. And trees and areas of Cambridge, I mean, I don't know, Kathy was spoken
I haven't
already?
spoken about the trees
Okay,
yet, no.
right, so I can Kathy.
I will.
I'm not going to speak about that, but what I'm saying is that we are having to fight to defend every tree, you know. They just, you know, the variety of complaints about the only tree on City Road, which is behind the Grafton Centre.
Yeah.
The rest of it is all built up, concrete and everything. You know, they wanted to cut that down because it was pushing up the pavement.
Yeah.
You know, compared to this wonderful tree. You know,
So I don't understand your question, because in terms of planning, so we're talking about planning policy.
Yeah.
So I would, if I may, I think planning policy is moving in favour of trees and biodiversity. Planning policy, as in there's a new piece of planning policy for all its failings called Biodiversity Net Gain. And that is incumbent on anybody who wants to develop a piece of land. They've got to show through the planning policy, through the scheme, that there's a 10% increase in biodiversity. Now, a way to do that is by planting. One of the ways is to plant trees. So I would respectfully disagree and say planning policy, I think, is more supportive. Now, I think perhaps what you may be getting at is, are the council slightly risk averse and worried about somebody's going to trip over that tree, fall over and sue them for £1 million? Yes. I think councils broadly are risk averse. But I respectfully disagree that I think planning policy is actually working more in favour, if it's implemented correctly, in terms of biodiversity as well. Because in previous policy, it was only protecting your bats and birds and badgers. Now, don't get me wrong, they should definitely be protected. You know, like they're protected species. But with new policy, a new policy framework, all biodiversity is being considered.
Well, we'll wait until the next
So I was going to think about these trees here, which are in St Matthew's Pieces
Okay.
in Cambridge, and they have been under threat since 2006.
Sorry, I've only lived in Cambridge for 40 years. Where are you talking about? Sorry, I should know this.
St Matthew's is in the middle of town. It's in
Near Mackay's.
near the
North
Near
Peters.
Mackay's.
Near Mackay's, I know Mackay.
It's behind Mackay's.
Yeah.
Old Howard Mallet Club.
Howard Mallet Club.
Yeah, I've got punched there in there a few times. That's good.
So that piece of land, I mean, how should I say?
Please do.
Basically, we keep defending these trees. So the house opposite is always, I'm sorry, I keep saying taking them to court, basically, the trees to court, because they've disrupted their foundation. So the house opposite is 25 years old. These are probably 130 now, I should say. They claim that they're disrupting their thing. And they just keep putting it in, and the council doesn't really look at what's going on. They should have thrown it out a long time ago and said, don't come and darken our doors again, basically, because they don't do any, it's always the same report put in. And they haven't answered. There's a lot of research done by local people about these trees and also the effects of trees and how they damage people's.
But so do they back up? Sorry, just to be clear, do people that complain, do they back up with a structural survey to say that?
They've had a structural survey. But they have. I think they have. But
they have done one which doesn't answer it.
it doesn't answer any of the questions.
I'm just not
Yeah.
convinced.
Yeah.
And we've asked the questions, but they don't answer those questions. And so we thought we'd won. It says on here we've won.
Yeah.
Actually, and that was the beginning of this year. Now they're back again. And so, I mean, that's where the planning are sort of risk averse, I'd say, is what it is, because they don't want to upset these people who are, it's a house of multiple occupancy, they're probably landowners.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on. There's also, I mean, there's loads of other stuff going on in Cherrington that shouldn't be going on, and which is going to endanger our chalk streams. And they kind of, so they're kind of, they're playing a game.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. I don't know.
Well, okay, so on a similar, well, now we're talking about trees. So I don't know if anybody saw on the news from a few weeks ago that in North London, in Enfield, there we go. Yes, the white web's oak. So Toby Carvery. Now, I'm certainly not going to put on camera what I really want to say, because it's a bit naughty, allegedly, of what's happened. However, what it's done, and with the felling of the sycamore, has brought up to how old trees, veteran trees, have very little so veteran trees are really, really old trees that are, broadly speaking, are completely covered in wildlife. When a tree gets to a certain age, it starts to decay. And when a tree can be alive and decay at the same time, it means it can attract so many insects. Let's paraphrase that for now. So they're they're really important for wildlife, but they don't have much legal protection. However, with these things that have happened, it's really brought that veteran trees do need that extra layer of protection, because
these are protected trees.
So via TPO,
yes. Yeah, but still, it's a sort of, I mean, and it may be that a slip of a pen and the council will say yes, and then it'll go ahead, and that's the sort of, to me, the worrying thing about this is that it depends what they feel like almost.
Yeah. So what I can say is, in my experience, no, I don't want to put that on camera. I think it just comes down to people. So the people we've been dealing with. So the biodiversity officer for Cambridge we've been dealing with here. He's superb. He has been very supportive, and he hasn't been saying, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. He's been saying, I love what you're doing. To make it better, you could do this. That really can-do attitude. Really juggling, really helpful attitude. So I guess in any sort of position like that, you have, whether it be a tree officer or anybody in the council, it's whether they can juggle, whether they've got communication skills and they can juggle the needs of everybody, and be able to sort of navigate all sides, really. But
it is interesting that especially the Enfield one, because it has made the national news, the fact that people do value trees.
Well, it's cultural, but it's people. Yeah, but there's so much value which you can't put a pound, shilling, and pence on to it. Yeah. But a tree like that via many boring algorithms and spreadsheets, it's worth like £1 million. Yeah. It's got it can do so much for the local community and the local wildlife, and it can filter, clean air and blah blah.
And the fact that it made local news shows that so many people did love it. It's because it did make that.
Yes, that's one of the positives that's come out of it.
National news.
Yeah.